When Brendan left for the hospital to visit his sister, Nicholas remained behind to tidy up the townhome he and Bryn were renting. It was a simple 2-story with a loft, 2 bedrooms, a large bath, and a full kitchen. With their primary focus on their studies, the boys didn't need much else. However, this didn't stop Bryn from bringing home a girl once in a while for a drink or two. To Nick's relief, things didn't usually go beyond that. He knew Bryn was looking for someone, but seeing the guy settle into domestic life was hard. Nick shook his head as he cleaned. Honestly, he didn't mind Brendan's dates. Bryn had been his friend for years now, so he hoped he'd find the girl he was looking for and not fall for a pretty face like Nicholas had in high school. He scowled as he wrung out the rag he used to wash the counters. That had been a rough year. He'd been enjoying the company of a red-headed girl, finding common interests in their conversations. But when he finally asked her out to catch a movie together, she said she had a different love interest. She claimed she didn't want to break the friendship, though Nicholas answered he didn't want to get in the way, so the friendship faded anyway. Bryn had helped him get back on his feet, letting him stay at his place on the weekends, doing nothing but play video games, trade Pokemon, and try to forget about the heartbreak. Nick smiled at the memories. During those days, his persona of the Ice Prince of Wales had more or less melted thanks to the court jester of the school. He shook his head, recalling the nickname fondly as he put on a kettle for tea. If he was the Ice Prince of Wales, that made Bryn the court jester in most cases, especially after that breakup. Bryn was the only one who could get him to smile after that. Another perk of the tiny home was it was less to keep tidy, which Nicholas preferred. Growing up with people who did this for him made a large house seem daunting, so this little one suited the 2 bachelors well. Soon, the smell of chamomile and lavender filled the home, giving it a cozy feeling he usually only found in books and stories. It was as if some magic had entered the house and settled there. Finally, a knock came to the door. Taking a deep breath and straightening his shirt, Nick answered. On the other side was a lovely woman, her hair in a tight bun, her makeup subtle but giving her an air of importance and no nonsense. She wore a white blouse and black skirt, her shoes matching flats. Around her neck she wore a polished amethyst pendant. Nicholas knew this pendant well. His mother rarely took it off, and he'd seen her fidgeting with it in court. She was a lawyer, and a damn good one at that. Nearly all cases she took on she won, and those she left to others often cost those lawyers money. She smiled at her son, her blue eyes matching his.
"Hello, my dear Nicholas."
"Hello, Mother. Please, come in. I have tea ready, and while the cookies are store-bought, they should do."
"Cookies? Nicholas, you sound more American every time I see you."
You can thank Brendan for that. He's as American as they come.
He led her to the living area, really only a few steps from the front door, and went to get the tea tray.
I trust your flight was comfortable.
"Oh, quite. Thankfully, the turbulence wasn't as rough as last time, and the city is quite the sight to drive through."
I suggest you see Colorado Springs. The mountains are quite the sight, and easier to see without the buildings in the way.
"I'll see if my schedule will allow a visit."
Though she held a dismissive tone, Nicholas knew his mother wasn't fond of the outdoors. Much like himself, she preferred the indoors, though more like his father, Nicholas did respect the outdoors. Both of his parents had a deep respect for the old ways, though they didn't participate. His father grew up on the border of Britain and Scotland, where he heard tales of fae folk, and that disrespecting them caused strife in one's household. His mother had grown up in Scotland and claimed her family was from a long line of mystic things. She even claimed her great-grandmother was favored by a fae prince, which led to her family's comfortable lifestyle. Nicholas loved these stories and often sought them out as a boy. However, he never found a trace of magic. Not one curious stone, a single toadstool, much less a ring of them. The two sat quietly for a moment, their relationship through Nicholas' life having been strained. Yes, she loved him, and he knew she loved him, but there was always a distance that neither could overcome. Finally, Mrs. Griffin set her mug of tea down.
"It's hard to believe you're 23 already."
I know. I find it hard to believe it myself, at times.
Well, it's time I gave you something. I should have given it to you on your 21st birthday, Lay. But I don't trust the mailing system for this.
She reached behind her neck and unclasped the amethyst pendant. She momentarily held it in her hand, looking into the smooth surface and the facets within before holding it out to Nicholas.
Your pendant?
Nick asked as he carefully accepted it and gazed at the gem, turning it slightly to watch the light reflect off the facets.
As you may know, it's a family heirloom. It's been passed from firstborn to firstborn in my family for generations. My grandfather said that it goes back as far as the Dark Ages. It's given our family much and helped me in my career. So I hope it continues to bring prosperity for you as well.
Nick looked at the pendant, feeling a cold tingle in his fingers the longer he held it.
Mother, I appreciate the gift, but...
Mrs. Griffin raised a hand and shook her head, silencing Nick.
It's yours now. It should have become yours 2 years ago, so I'm a bit late in it getting to you, and as our only son, it's yours by right.
Nicholas looked at his mother and then back at the pendant. It was so gaudy. It looked like it should have been made into a brooch. Or perhaps it was, but the brooch part broke and thus became a necklace instead.
I'm not superstitious, Mother. How can a pendant give prosperity?
Mrs. Griffin looked at the pendant and then turned to the window as if seeing something move there. She took a slow breath before smiling at Nicholas.
You'll soon see. Just know what you want from life and always keep it on you.
Nick raised an eyebrow at her, then looked back down at the pendant. If nothing else, he could use it as a fidget toy when studying. He sighed and nodded.
Thank you very much for the gift, Mother.
His mother smiled warmly and stood, prompting Nick to stand as well, and she embraced him. As he awkwardly returned it, he heard her whisper in his ear.
May you find what you seek, and may you know the price of what you want.
He blinked at her curiously, but she pulled away with that same warm smile.
I'd love to stay longer, Nicholas, but I'm needed elsewhere. A client of mine wants to discuss an upcoming court date.
I understand. I hope it goes well for you.
As do I. I look forward to seeing your life unfold.
With that, she waved and stepped away to call an Uber. Nicholas watched her go and lifted the palm that still held the pendant. What did she mean by what she said? Why did it sound ominous? He turned the pendant in his hand for a couple more minutes before stepping back inside. An heirloom, huh? If it helped his mother become the excellent lawyer she is today, there may be some merit. But at the same time, he wasn't superstitious. After all the disappointing searches through the Scottish Highlands, he'd come to terms with magic being only found in books and old wives' tales. All the same, he sighed as he went up to his room and tossed the pendant onto his bed. He could think about that later. Right now, he has studies to work on. He sat at his desk and turned on the light, having brought up the tea from downstairs to finish while he worked.
Hi, I'm here to visit Abigail Books.
Brendan said to the desk clerk at the Children's Colorado Hospital. It looked like a cheerful place, though Brendan knew it was far from that. The clerk nodded and smiled as she tapped away on her computer, looking down her nose through a pair of reading glasses.
She's in room 502, sir.
Thanks.
Brendan nodded to the clerk before briskly moving toward the elevator. As the elevator ascended, Brendan's mind wandered a little. When his sister developed cardiomyopathy, it scared everyone. And when the doctor said Abby wasn't a good candidate for a heart transplant, the whole house had gone quiet for 2 months. The doctors did everything they could whenever Abby was back in the hospital, but the results were often the same. 5th floor. Brendan jumped from the elevator's chime, but quickly walked out to find Abby's room. He kept his eyes down so he couldn't see into the other rooms he passed. Brendan never liked hospitals one little bit. He was sure a Reaper was waiting around every corner, just out of sight. That is until he found room 502. Smiling, he knocked on the door.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have a delivery of 1 dash of sunshine for Aubrey Brooks.
Ha ha ha. Aubrey's out, but I'll take the delivery.
Brendan opened the door, glad to see his sister smiling. She looked okay, but he knew too much excitement would upset her heart's rhythm. Her brown hair was brushed, and her green eyes were bright compared to her pale complexion.
I thought you'd be coming on the weekend.
I heard you were back in the Slammers, so I thought I'd visit early. So, what you in for this time?
Oh, you know, the usual. Ticker's talking rather than ticking. It's pretty much routine by now.
That's a pretty lousy routine, Abs. So, I brought some boredom breakers and mood lifters to help with that.
He dug into his bag and produced a Nintendo Switch with a victorious smirk.
I added a new game I think you'll like, so let me know what you think after I absolutely kick your butt at Smash Bros.
Abby smiled as she accepted the game console from him.
Thanks, Bren. Oh, this will totally help against that boredom.
She told him. She looked at her brother, and her smile turned into a lopsided grin and a quirked eyebrow.
A man bun? You can't be seriously wearing your hair like that, are you?
What? It's a cool style.
It makes you look like a weird hippie.
Hippies have their hair down, so there. Besides, girls love man buns.
I'm a girl, and I can tell you I don't. But I bet I could fix that.
She motioned him closer and grabbed the brush from her side table before undoing the man bun and brushing out her big brother's hair.
How's college?
Dull, but it makes Mom and Dad happy. Just glad I got in with the track scholarship.
Is it something that makes you happy, though?
Not really, but you know how Dad is.
You need a college education to be a respectable young man, Brendan. Keep your feet on the ground and your nose in a book.
Yeah, I know. But he means well, though.
I know. He's just stressed, that's all.
But you should do what you love to do.
That would be drawing and painting, and that is a hard field to get into.
So? You're good! You told me you sold some pieces a while ago.
Yeah, but it's inconsistent. It helps make ends meet, but not a living.
Yet. It's not making a living. Yet. After all, your art reminds people that not everything is dreary. There's still magic to be found.
You're just saying that because I painted you as a fairy princess for your 13th birthday.
And it's still hanging in my room. We all need to remember the good things. And that's what artists do. And that's what you're amazing at. So if anything, make this degree work for you rather than you work for it.
Huh. Thou art wise for 15, baby sister.
That's my job. I remind you what's what. There, that looks better.
Brendan lifted a hand and touched the braid Abby had woven into his hair, smiling as he felt it give him a half crown around his head and back into the man bun.
Not bad. From hippie to Viking. I like it.
Nah, just a stylish hippie. Actual Vikings have beards.
Hey, I can grow a beard. Look, see? Stubble?
Nope, dust.
Oh ho ho. Them's fighting words, Abs.
Are they? What you gonna do about it, hippie?
Beat you at Smash?
Oh, you're on!
Abby laughed as Brendan got the game set up. The two played for hours, Brendan using Icarus and Abby playing as Zelda. After long school days, they both forgot they were in a hospital room playing like they were grade schoolers and high schoolers again. Brendan smiled as he won a couple of rounds, but he groaned when Abby beat him in the last round of the game. Soon, a knock came to the door, and the doctor stepped in.
Hey kids, visiting hours are ending.
Oh.
I know, guys, but rules are rules.
Brendan smiled and handed Abby one more gift.
I'll be back again soon, Abs.
Abby looked at the picture, finding it was a sketch of her as a fairy sitting on a sunflower. She smiled and nodded at him.
You'd better be. You still need to sign this.
Oh, I'd better be back then, with a fancy pen?
The fanciest.
Bryn grinned at her, shouldering his bag and stepping out, though he swallowed a lump forming in his throat. Leaving his sister here wasn't easy, but she was being cared for. That was the important part. It was a long drive back to the house, and it was late when he got home. Exhausted, Bryn went up to his room, dropping his bag by the easel that held his latest commission. A dwarven cavern with glowing gems and a few dwarves scattered around the space. A fiery furnace in the back of the cavern casting light for them to work by. Brendan lay on his bed and looked at the painting, already spotting things he could improve. He looked at the painting for a long while, thinking about Abby back in the hospital. His throat tightened and his eyes burned. The list for a heart transplant to match her blood type was long. There was no telling when a heart would come up. On top of all the screenings to make sure she was healthy enough for a new heart, it made his own heart pound like a heavy hammer against his chest, His vision pulsed with each beat, and he clenched the blankets into a fist. Rolling to face the wall, he closed his eyes and let worried tears fall. He didn't want to lose his sister, but every time she had to go back to the hospital, it made him worry a little more. Eventually, the tears slowed and sleep overtook him, pulling him down into a dreamless darkness.
What's up, everyone? I'm Brendan. I wanted to personally thank you for listening to Guardians and Keepers of Myth. If you want to support this story more, you can check out our Kofi, or if you're excited to see what happens next, you can buy your own copy of the book. All the links will be in the description. Thank you all so much. This audio series wouldn't be here without your support.